Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching Earth burn. The blue planet that had been home to billions of humans was now covered in fire and smoke. Giant alien ships floated above the continents, shooting down at cities and forests. Every few seconds, bright flashes lit up the darkness where another human city died. Jake's hands shook as he held the communication device. His voice was calm, but his heart was breaking. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Begin final evacuation protocols. We have maybe 6 hours before they find us. 50 years ago, the aliens had arrived without warning. They called themselves the Zorathi Empire. 12 different alien species working together, all united in one goal: to wipe out every human in the galaxy. They said humans were dangerous. They said humans were a mistake that needed to be fixed. The first attacks came fast. Earth's defenses were strong, but not strong enough. Human ships were good, but the Zorathi ships were better. Human weapons could hurt them, but their weapons could destroy entire cities with one shot. The war was over before most people understood it had started. Jake walked to the large window and looked down at the refugee ships. Thousands of them filled the space around his command vessel. Each ship carried families, children, old people, scientists, soldiers, and workers. 3 million humans total. That was all that was left of a species that once numbered in the billions. Captain Morrison, incoming message from the civilian transport Haven's Rest, said Lieutenant Ben Clark, his communications officer. Jake nodded. He knew who was calling. Put it through. The screen flickered, and Lisa Morrison appeared. She was Jake's wife, and she was in charge of organizing the civilian evacuation. Her face was tired and sad, but her eyes were still strong. Behind her, Jake could see crowds of people waiting to board the transport ships. Jake, we have a problem, Lisa said. The Zorathi hunters found the third evacuation group. 200 ships, 40,000 people. Jake closed his eyes. Every day, they lost more people. The Zorathi had special hunter ships that chased down human refugees. They never took prisoners. They never showed mercy. They just destroyed everything human they found. How many got away? Jake asked. None, Lisa whispered. The bridge went quiet. Everyone had heard the answer. Jake felt anger burning in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry would not save the people who were still alive. He had to think clearly. He had to be smart. Continue the evacuation, Jake ordered. We leave in 5 hours, no matter what. Lisa nodded. Jake, Amy wants to talk to you. The screen changed, and Jake saw his daughter. Amy Morrison was 15 years old. She had her mother's strong eyes and her father's stubborn chin. Like all the young people, she had grown up during the war. She had never known peace. Dad, are we really leaving Earth forever? Amy asked. Jake looked at his daughter through the screen. He wanted to tell her that they would come back soon. He wanted to promise that everything would be okay. But he had learned not to lie to his family. Yes, Amy, we're leaving. But remember what I taught you about humans. We survive. We adapt. We never give up. Someday, we will return. Amy nodded. She was young, but she understood. The war had made all the children grow up too fast. I promise you, Amy, someday we will come back. And when we do, we will make them pay for what they did to our world. 3 hours later, Admiral Peter Collins called a meeting of all ship captains. Collins was an old soldier who had fought in the early battles against the Zorathi. He had lost his left arm in the battle for Luna Colony. His face was covered with scars from when his ship had been boarded by Zorathi soldiers. The time has come, Collins said. His voice was rough and tired. Earth is lost. Humanity's only chance is to run as far and as fast as we can. The Zorathi, think they have won. Let them think that. But we will survive in the dark spaces between the stars. We will grow strong. And someday, our children or their children will return. Captain Mary Davis raised her hand. She commanded one of the military escort ships. Admiral, where can we go? They control the whole galaxy now. They have ships everywhere. Collins brought up a star map on the big screen. It showed the galaxy with all its billions of stars. Red? Areas marked Zorathy space. It was almost everything. Here, Collins pointed to empty space beyond the galaxy's edge. The void between galaxies. No one goes there because there are no resources, no planets, nothing useful. It will be hard. Many of us will die, but some will live. And the Zorathy will never think to look for us there. Captain Steve Rogers, who commanded the science ship Discovery, looked worried. Admiral, that's empty space. How will we survive? How will we get fuel, food, materials? We become nomads, Collins answered. We live on our ships. We recycle everything. We mine asteroids and space dust. We use the ice from dead comets. It will not be easy, but humans have always survived. In impossible places. This is just one more impossible place. The evacuation continued. More ships arrived every hour, filled with the last survivors from Earth's colonies. The moon bases sent their people. The Mars settlements emptied completely. Space stations that had been home to millions were abandoned forever. Jake watched. It all from his bridge. He saw families saying goodbye to relatives who had chosen to stay behind and fight. He saw children crying for pets they had to leave. He saw old people taking one last look at the planet where they had been born. But he also saw something else. He saw determination in people's faces. He saw parents holding their children close and whispering promises about the future. He saw young couples making plans for the long journey ahead. He saw humans being human, refusing to break even when everything seemed hopeless. Dr. Helen Carter came to the bridge to give Jake the final report. She was the fleet's chief medical officer and one of Earth's best genetic scientists. All the genetic banks are loaded, she said. Seeds, animal DNA, human genetic samples, everything we need to rebuild life somewhere else. And Jake, I've been thinking about the long term. If we're really going to be out there for generations, maybe centuries, we should consider genetic improvements. Make humans stronger, faster, smarter. Jake looked at her. What do you mean? I mean evolution, but directed by us instead of nature. The Zorathy beat us because they were better adapted for war. Maybe it's time for humans to adapt. 2. Before Jake could answer, alarms started blaring. Lieutenant Clark turned from his station, his face pale. Captain, Zorathy Hunter Fleet detected. 12 ships coming fast. They'll be here in 2 hours. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. They were not ready. Half the evacuation ships were still loading people. If they left now, they would have to abandon hundreds of thousands of humans. Admiral Collins, we have a problem, Jake said into his communicator. Collins' voice came back immediately. I know. I see them on sensors. How many people are still planetside? Jake looked at the numbers on his screen. 600,000, maybe more. There was a long silence. Finally, Collins spoke. We save who we can. The species survives. That's what matters now. Jake looked down at Earth one more time. Somewhere down there, 600,000 humans were about to die because the evacuation ships could not save them all. Somewhere down there, the last defenders were still fighting, buying time with their lives so that others could escape. All ships, Jake broadcast to the fleet. Emergency departure in 30 minutes. All ships that can jump, prepare for immediate evacuation to Rally Point Alpha. As the human fleet prepared to leave, Jake made a promise to himself and to his. daughter, and to all the humans who would die today. The Zorathi thought they had won. They thought humanity was finished. But they were wrong. Humans would survive. Humans would grow strong. And someday, when the Zorathi least expected it, humanity would return to balance the scales. Dr. Helen Carter stood in her laboratory aboard the science ship Evolution, looking at the genetic samples that would change humanity forever. 500,000 years had passed since the Great Escape from Earth. 50,000 generations of humans had lived and died in the void between galaxies. The small girl Amy Morrison, who had once cried for her lost home, was now a legend told in stories. Her great-great-granddaughter Helen carried the same stubborn spirit, but with knowledge that the original refugees could never have imagined. The fleet had grown during the long journey. 3 million refugees had become 30 million survivors, living in massive ship cities that moved through empty space like metal worlds. Each generation had learned to live without planets, without solid ground beneath their feet, without blue skies above their heads. They were true children of space. Now Helen touched the control panel and watched the genetic display light up. The samples glowed with soft blue light, showing the changes that time and science had made to human DNA. Her ancestors had been normal humans, limited by biology and physics. But living in space for thousands of centuries had forced evolution to move faster than nature ever intended. Dr. Carter, the council is ready for your report, said her assistant, Dr. Kevin Nash. He was young, barely 200 years old, but his enhanced mind could process information faster than any human from old Earth could have imagined. Helen nodded and walked toward the council chamber. The hallways of the Evolution were wide and bright, with walls that showed images of stars and galaxies. Children played in artificial parks where trees grew in careful patterns. Families lived in apartments that would have seemed impossible. To the first refugees, this was home now, the only home most humans had ever known. The High Council met in the central chamber of the fleet's command ship, New Hope. Representatives from all 30 ship cities gathered to make decisions for humanity's future. Fleet Admiral Kate Hudson sat at the center table. She was the great-granddaughter of Captain Jake Morrison, and she had his same determined eyes. Dr. Carter, Admiral Hudson said, please give us your report on Project Evolution. Helen activated the holographic display. Images of human genetic structures filled the air above the table. After 500,000 years of directed evolution, humanity has changed. We are no longer the same species that fled Earth. She pointed to the first image. Average human lifespan is now 3,000 years. Our bones are stronger than steel. Our muscles can lift 10 times what old Earth humans could manage. Our reflexes are 50 times faster. Most importantly, our brains process information at quantum speeds. Council member Robert Miller leaned forward. What does this mean? For combat applications? Helen smiled. It means a modern human could fight 100 Zorathi warriors at the same time and win easily. Our ancestors were limited by biology. We are not. Commander Rick Barnes stood up from his seat. He was the head of military training for the entire fleet. His body showed the results of the genetic improvements. He was tall and strong, with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Dr. Carter is correct. Our soldiers are no longer just human. They are something new, something the galaxy has never seen before. Rick activated his own display, showing training footage from the military ships. Human soldiers moved like dancers, flowing around obstacles and striking targets with perfect precision. They wore no armor because their skin was harder than most metals. They carried weapons, but their bare hands were just as deadly. We have created 47 different fighting styles that use our enhanced abilities, Rick explained. Each style is designed to counter specific alien combat methods. We have studied every Zorathi species for thousands of years. We know their weaknesses better than they know them themselves. Admiral Hudson watched the training videos. What about our weapons and ships? Engineer Sophie Miller stood to answer that question. She was small and quiet, but her mind held the designs for technology that could reshape reality itself. We have advanced far beyond anything the Zorathi possess. Our ships can phase between dimensions, making us invisible to their sensors. Our weapons manipulate quantum fields to destroy matter at the molecular level. Sophie touched her control pad, and the chamber filled with images of human technology. Ships that looked like works of art, weapons that seemed too beautiful to be deadly, and devices that bent space and time. But our greatest advancement is not physical, Sophie continued. We have created the Unity Network. Every human mind can connect to every other human mind instantly, across any distance. We think together now. We plan together. We fight together. As one organism with 30 million bodies. Dr. Helen Carter nodded. The Unity Network allows us to share memories, skills, and knowledge instantly. A human child can learn everything their parents know in minutes. A soldier can access the fighting experience of every warrior in the fleet. We have become a collective intelligence that spans space itself. Council member Janet Brooks asked the question everyone was thinking. Are we still human? Helen looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. They looked human, but their eyes held wisdom that came from centuries of life and shared knowledge from millions of minds. They moved with grace that defied gravity. They spoke with voices that carried the weight of collective experience. We are what humans were always meant to become, Helen said. Earth humans were limited by their planet, their short lives, their isolated minds. We are unlimited. We are human potential finally fulfilled. Admiral Hudson stood up. Then it is. Time to return to the galaxy. Time to see what the Zorathi have done in our absence. Commander Rick Barnes pulled up star charts showing the galaxy they had left behind. Our long-range scouts report that the Zorathi Empire still exists. They control the entire galaxy now. Billions of species have been enslaved or destroyed. They have strip-mined entire star systems. The galaxy is dying under their rule. And they think we are extinct, added Sophie Miller. They stopped looking for human survivors after the first few thousand years. To them, we are just a footnote in their history books. Dr. Helen Carter smiled, and there was something cold in her expression. They think they won the war. They think they solved the human problem. They have no idea what we have become. Admiral Hudson looked at each council member. The vote is simple. Do we remain hidden in the void, safe but forgotten? Or do we return to reclaim our galaxy and free the enslaved species? The vote was unanimous. Every hand raised in favor of return. Then we begin Phase 1 immediately, Hudson declared. Reconnaissance and infiltration. We need to learn everything about current Zorathi military capabilities, government structure, and technological level. We need to locate their key worlds and identify their leadership. Captain Dan Cooper stepped forward. He commanded the stealth scout fleet, ships designed to be completely invisible to any known detection method. Admiral, my ships are ready. We can begin deep reconnaissance missions immediately. How long for a complete intelligence assessment? Hudson asked. 6 months for basic intelligence. 2 years for complete strategic planning data. Dr. Rachel Stone, the fleet's chief technology officer, raised her hand. Admiral, we should also begin producing the equipment we will need. Battle armor, weapons, ships designed for warfare rather than exploration. Hudson nodded. Begin immediately. I want every ship city converted to war production within 1 year. After 500,000 years of preparation, humanity will return to the galaxy. The council meeting ended, but the work was just beginning. Across the fleet, humans began preparing for the war they had been planning for thousands of centuries. Factories that had built tools for survival now began building instruments of war. Training programs that had maintained human fighting skills now intensified to create the most deadly warriors the galaxy had ever seen. In her laboratory, Dr. Helen Carter looked once more at the genetic samples that had transformed humanity. The scared refugees who fled Earth were gone forever. In their place stood something new, something powerful, something the Zorathi Empire could never have imagined in their worst nightmares. The long wait was over. Humanity was coming home. Fleet Admiral Kate Hudson stood in the command center of the stealth ship Silent Thunder, watching the galaxy grow larger on the main screen. After 500,000 years in the void, humanity was finally returning home. But the galaxy that appeared before them was not the one their ancestors had left behind. Where once billions of stars had shone with the light of thriving civilizations, now only darkness remained. Entire star systems had been stripped of their planets, reduced to empty space and floating debris. The Zorathi Empire had consumed everything, turning a living galaxy into an industrial wasteland. "Admiral, we are approaching the outer rim," reported Captain Dan Cooper from his position at the sensor station. Dan commanded the scout fleet, and his ships had been the first to cross back into galactic space. What they found there shocked even the enhanced minds of modern humanity. "Show me the long-range scans," Hudson ordered, a screen filled with images that made the human observers fall silent. Massive Zorathi mining stations floated where planets used to exist. Slave ships moved in endless lines between factory worlds and resource extraction sites. Billions of alien beings worked in conditions that would have killed them quickly, but the Zorathi kept them alive just long enough to be useful. Dr. Rachel Stone, who had joined the reconnaissance mission to study Zorathi technology, shook her head in disgust. "They have turned the entire galaxy into a machine. Every world exists only to feed their empire." "What about resistance?" Hudson asked. "Are any species fighting back?" Captain Dan Cooper pulled up intelligence reports from the past 6 months of scouting. There are small rebel groups scattered across Zorathi space, but they are weak and poorly organized. Most species gave up fighting centuries ago. They have been slaves for so long that they do not remember freedom. Hudson studied the data flowing across her screens. The Unity network allowed her to process information at incredible speed, connecting her mind with the collective intelligence of all 30 million humans in the hidden fleet. Within moments, she understood the complete strategic situation. The Zorathi have 12 primary worlds, one for each member species of their empire. She said, "These worlds are heavily defended, but contain their government centers, military commands, and industrial cores. If we can take these 12 worlds simultaneously, the entire empire will collapse." Scout Captain Tim Brooks appeared on the communication screen. He was currently deep inside Zorathi space, his enhanced genetics allowing him to pass as various alien species. "Admiral, I have something important to report. The Zorathi technology has barely improved since they drove us from Earth. They became comfortable with their victory and stopped advancing. Meanwhile, our technology is now thousands of years ahead of theirs." This was exactly what Hudson had hoped to hear. "Explain." Tim activated his portable scanner, showing images of Zorathi ships and weapons. Their ships are large and intimidating, but they use the same basic designs from 500,000 years ago. Their weapons are powerful, but slow and inefficient. Their defenses are designed to stop the kind of attacks they remember from ancient wars, not what we can do now. Dr. Rachel Stone leaned forward. "What about their numbers? Do they have more ships than our ancestors faced?" "Yes and no," Tim replied. "They have more ships, but most are cargo vessels and slave transports. Their actual military fleet is smaller than it was during the Great War. They have not faced a real threat in thousands of centuries. They have grown soft. Admiral Hudson felt a cold satisfaction flow through her enhanced mind. The Zorathy had made the classic mistake of every successful empire. They had become lazy and overconfident. They thought they were invincible because no one had challenged them for so long. What about their leadership? Hudson asked. Captain Dan Cooper brought up profiles of the Zorathy High Command. 12 supreme leaders, one from each species. They meet on the capital world of Zorath Prime once every 10 years to coordinate empire policy. Their next meeting is in 8 months. Hudson smiled. 8 months would be perfect timing. It would give humanity enough time to position their forces while ensuring that all 12 enemy leaders would be in the same place at the same time. Dan, I want detailed reconnaissance of all 12 primary worlds. I need to know their defensive capabilities, military strength, civilian populations, and industrial capacity. Use every stealth ship we have. Already underway, Admiral. My ships are conducting deep scans of each target world. We should have complete intelligence within 3 months. Over the following weeks, more disturbing information came back from the scout ships. The Zorathy Empire was even worse than humanity had imagined. They had not just conquered other species, they had broken them completely. Ancient civilizations that had once built beautiful cities and created magnificent art now existed only to serve their masters. Dr. Helen Carter, monitoring the reports from the main fleet, felt sick as she read about the conditions on slave worlds. Entire species had been genetically modified to be better workers. Their intelligence had been reduced so they would not rebel. Their lifespans had been shortened so they would not cost too much to maintain. The Zorathy had turned living beings into biological machines. This is not just conquest, Helen told Admiral Hudson during one of their Unity Network conferences. This is the systematic destruction of everything that makes life worth living. They have committed crimes against existence itself. Hudson nodded grimly, which is why we will show them no mercy. They chose to be monsters. Now they will face the consequences. Captain Tim Brooks sent back more intelligence from his deep cover missions. He had infiltrated Zorathy government facilities and military bases, using his enhanced abilities to avoid detection. What he discovered that was both encouraging and infuriating. The Zorathy barely remember humans exist, Tim reported. In their historical records, we are listed as extinct species number 847. They mention our destruction as a minor footnote in their expansion timeline. To them, we were just another primitive species that got in their way. This information made Admiral Hudson angry, but it also gave her hope. If the Zorathy had forgotten about humanity, they would never expect the attack that was coming. They had no defenses prepared for human tactics or technology. They would be completely surprised. Tim, I need you to find out about their myths and legends, Hudson ordered. Are there any stories about humanity among the slave species? Tim's eyes lit up. Actually, yes. Many of the enslaved species tell stories about the lost warriors who escaped the Great Purge long ago. They say these warriors will return someday to free the galaxy from Zorathy rule. The stories have been passed down through hundreds of generations. Do they believe these stories? Some do, especially the younger slaves. The Zorathy try to stop the stories, but they spread anyway. There are even underground resistance groups that call themselves human hopefuls, even though most of them have never seen a real human. Admiral Hudson felt a plan forming in her enhanced mind. Not only would humanity return to destroy the Zorathy Empire, they would fulfill the hopes and dreams of billions of enslaved beings who had waited centuries for freedom. Begin Phase 2, Hudson commanded. I want infiltration teams placed on every major Zorathi world, not just for intelligence gathering, but for sabotage preparation. When we attack, I want their defenses to fail from the inside. Agent Lisa. Chong, leader of the infiltration specialists, accepted the mission immediately. Admiral, my teams can be in position within 2 months. We will plant quantum disruption devices in their shield generators, communication arrays, and weapon systems. When you give the word, their entire defensive network will collapse simultaneously. The preparation continued for months. Human agents, genetically modified to look like various alien species, spread throughout Zorathi space. They took jobs as maintenance workers, communication technicians, and security guards. None of the Zorathi suspected that their empire was being infiltrated by the descendants of the species they thought they had wiped out long ago as the Zorathi. High Command prepared for their 10-year meeting on Zorath Prime. Humanity prepared for the war that would end 500,000 years of exile. The time for hiding was over. The time for revenge had finally come. Agent Tim Brooks crouched in the ventilation shaft above the Zorathi Command Center on Zarian Prime, his enhanced hearing picking up every word of the alien conversation below. His body had been surgically altered to look like a Zorathi maintenance worker, complete with their blue skin and extra arms. After 3 months of living among the enemy, he had learned to think like them, speak like them, and move like them. But underneath the disguise, he was still completely human. Today was the day. In 6 hours, the simultaneous attack would begin across all 12 Zorathi homeworlds. Tim's job was to disable the planetary defense grid exactly 30 seconds before the human fleet arrived. He touched the small quantum device attached to his belt. One button press would send a signal that would destroy every shield generator, communication relay, and weapon platform on the planet below him. Zorathi officers moved around the command center, completely unaware that their empire was about to end. They talked about slave quotas and resource extraction schedules. They complained about rebellious workers and aging equipment. None of them imagined that death was floating silently in space just beyond their detection range. Defense Grid Status Report, ordered Commander Vex High, the Zorathi officer in charge of planetary security. His voice was harsh and grating, like metal scraping against stone. "All systems normal, Commander," replied his subordinate. "No unusual activity detected in this sector for the past 50 years. Tim almost smiled. If only they knew that human stealth ships had been studying their defenses for months, learning every weakness and planning every attack. Light years away, on the planet Morthos, Agent Lisa Chong sat in a Zorathi communication facility, pretending to repair a broken data terminal. Her genetic modifications made her look like a Morthic technician with gray skin and large black eyes. But her human mind was connected through the Unity network to every other human agent across the galaxy. She could feel the presence of Tim Brooks on Zarian Prime, Agent Kevin Nash on Gorvik Station, Agent Sophie Miller on Thorian World, and dozens of others. All of them were in position. All of them were ready. The collective consciousness of 30 million humans focused on this single moment. Through the Unity network, Lisa felt Admiral Kate Hudson's mind touch hers. The Admiral was aboard the command ship Vengeance, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon just outside Zorathi space. All agents report status. Hudson's mental voice reached every human operative simultaneously. One by one, the confirmations came back. Zarian Prime ready, Morthos ready, Gorvak Station ready, Thorian World ready. All 12 target worlds confirmed their agents were in position, and the sabotage devices were armed. Fleet commanders, final status check, Hudson broadcast to the Strike Force. General Amy Foster, great-great-granddaughter of the original refugee Amy Morrison, commanded the main assault fleet from the battleship Retribution. First Fleet ready. 300 ships positioned outside Zarian Prime. Captain Jake Miller reported from the heavy cruiser Justice. Second Fleet ready. 250 ships positioned outside Morthos. The reports continued from all 12. Strike forces. In total, 3,000 human warships were positioned around the Zorathi homeworlds. Invisible to enemy sensors, waiting for the order to attack, Dr. Rachel Stone monitored the operation from the science vessel Discovery. All quantum disruption devices are synchronized and ready. On your command, Admiral, every Zorathi defense system in the galaxy will go offline simultaneously. Admiral Hudson felt the weight of 500,000 years of human suffering pressing down on her enhanced shoulders. Every human who had died during the Great Exodus, every child who had grown up without a real home, every generation that had lived and died in the cold void between galaxies, all of them would be avenged in the next few hours. Begin the operation, Hudson commanded. On Zarian Prime, Tim Brooks pressed the button on his quantum device. Instantly, invisible pulses of energy raced through the planet's electrical systems. Shield generators overloaded and exploded. Communication towers went dark. Weapon platforms shut down as their control systems failed. In the space of 10 seconds, the most heavily defended world in Zorathi space became completely helpless. The same scene played out on 11 other worlds. Zorathi defenders watched in horror as their technology failed all at once. Emergency alerts flooded their communication systems, but the communication systems themselves were dead. Backup power supplies activated, but the backup systems had been sabotaged. In the command center below Tim, alarms started screaming. Zorathi officers ran in all directions, shouting orders that no one could follow because their equipment would not work. "What is happening?" Commander Vex-High demanded. "All systems failing, sir. Shields down. Weapons offline. Communications dead." "How is this possible?" "Run diagnostics." "Diagnostic systems are offline too, sir." Tim climbed quietly out of the ventilation shaft and walked calmly toward an exit. No one paid attention to a maintenance worker during an emergency. He stepped outside and looked up at the sky just as the first human ships appeared. They came out of quantum phase like ghosts becoming real. Sleek, beautiful vessels that moved with impossible grace. The Zorathi had never seen ships that looked like living things. Ships that seemed to dance through space instead of simply flying through it. General Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the Retribution as her fleet materialized around Zarian Prime. Through the Unity network, she could see and feel everything that was happening on all 12 worlds at the same time. The coordinated attack was perfect. 500,000 years of planning had led to this moment. "All ships, weapons free," Foster commanded. "Show them what humans have learned." The human ships opened fire, and the Zorathi defenders discovered how far behind their technology had fallen. Zorathi weapons shot beams of energy that moved in straight lines at the speed of light. Human weapons manipulated space itself, creating areas where matter simply ceased to exist. Zorathi ships tried to dodge attacks they could not see coming. Human ships moved between dimensions, appearing and disappearing like deadly phantoms. Space battle around Zarian Prime lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the entire Zorathi defense fleet was gone. Not damaged, not disabled, but completely destroyed down to the last molecule. Similar scenes played out around all 12 homeworlds. Zorathi fleets that had seemed invincible for thousands of centuries were wiped out by human forces that fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. On the planet's surface of Zarian Prime, Zorathi ground forces tried to organize a defense. They had never faced human soldiers before, and they were not prepared for what they encountered. Sergeant Mike Davis led the first human ground assault team. His enhanced body moved faster than Zorathy eyes could track. His skin was harder than their weapons could penetrate. His mind was connected to every other human soldier through the Unity network, allowing perfect coordination. The Zorathy soldiers fired their weapons at him, but Mike simply walked through the energy beams like they were warm light. He reached the first group of defenders and struck them with his bare hands. Enhanced human strength turned flesh and bone into dust. More human soldiers appeared around the Zorathy positions. They moved like dancers, flowing around obstacles and striking with deadly precision. The Zorathy tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to run. Human soldiers were everywhere, peering from shadows and striking from impossible angles. Within hours, all 12 Zorathy homeworlds had fallen. Their fleets were destroyed, their defenses were shattered, and their armies were defeated. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 500,000 years collapsed in a single day. Admiral Hudson received confirmation from all 12 strike forces. The first phase of humanity's revenge was complete, but this was just the beginning. The real reckoning was about to start. Begin Phase 2, Hudson commanded. Find every Zorathy who participated in the destruction of Earth. Find every official who profited from slavery. Find every leader who ordered the murder of innocents. The trials begin now. Across the galaxy, the enslaved species looked up the sky and saw human ships where Zorathy vessels used to patrol. For the first time in thousands of centuries, the oppressed felt hope. The lost warriors had returned, and freedom had come at last. Commander Lisa Chong stood in the ruins of the former Zorathy Imperial Palace on Zorath Prime, watching as human soldiers brought the last of the war criminals before the Judgment Tribunal. The massive throne room where Zorathy emperors had once planned the destruction of entire species was now filled with cages, holding the architects of 500,000 years of suffering. President John Parker sat at the center of the tribunal, his enhanced mind processing the memories and evidence that proved each prisoner's crimes. Through quantum DNA analysis, humans had identified every single Zorathy who had participated in the original attack on Earth. Even after 500,000 years, human technology could trace bloodlines and find the descendants of those who had committed genocide. Bring forward Warlord Kex Thul, Parker commanded. 2 human soldiers escorted a massive, 4-armed Zorathy to the center of the chamber. Kex Thul had been the military commander who personally ordered the bombardment of Earth's major cities. His genetic records showed he was directly descended from the original war leader who had planned humanity's extinction. Kex Thul of the Zorathy species, President Parker said, his voice carrying the authority of 30 million human minds speaking as one. You are charged with genocide, war crimes, and crimes against existence itself. How do you plead? Zorathy. Warlord tried to stand straight, but fear made his limbs shake. I was not alive during the human war. I cannot be held responsible for the actions of my ancestors. Dr. Helen Carter stepped forward from her position with the tribunal. You're genetic. Memory banks show you celebrated the anniversary of Earth's destruction every year. Your personal records show you ordered the execution of slaves who spoke about the human legends. You continued the crimes of your ancestors willingly. Kex Thul's 4 eyes darted around the chamber, looking for escape that did not exist. Humans were dangerous. They had to be stopped. It was necessary for galactic peace. Admiral Kate Hudson rose from her seat. Her enhanced voice filled the chamber with cold authority. You will now experience what your victims experienced. You will face extinction as a species, just as you brought extinction to billions of others. The sentence was carried out immediately. Quantum weapons completely destroyed Kex Thul at the molecular level, erasing him so completely that no trace of his existence remained. This was the fate of every Zorathy who had participated in genocide. Not just death, but complete removal from reality itself. Over the following months, the trials continued across all 12 former Zorothy worlds. Thousands of war criminals faced judgment for crimes committed across millennia. But President Parker and the Human Republic did not stop with punishing the guilty. They began the massive work of rebuilding the galaxy. Dr. Emma Wright stood in the genetics laboratory on New Terra, formerly the Zorothy capital world. Around her, dozens of human scientists worked to restore species that had been extinct for thousands of years. Using advanced technology that manipulated time itself, they reached back into history to collect genetic samples from before the extinctions occurred. Dr. Wright, we have successfully restored the Tellurian species, reported her assistant, Dr. Brian Kelly. All 1 billion individuals are being grown in artificial wombs. They should be ready for resettlement within 6 months. Emma nodded and moved to the next project. The Aquilians had been wiped out 50,000 years ago when the Zorothy drained their ocean worlds. Now human technology was rebuilding their genetics from quantum echoes in space-time itself. What about the crystalline entities? Emma asked. More difficult, Brian admitted. Their consciousness was based on mineral structures that the Zorothy completely destroyed. But we think we can rebuild them using quantum crystallization techniques. This was happening on every world that humans had liberated. Species that had been extinct for millennia were being brought back to life. Planets that had been strip-mined were being restored to their original beauty. The galaxy was healing under human care. On the world formerly known as Slave Station Omega-7, Captain Dan Cooper watched as millions of former slaves took their first steps as free beings. Many of them had been enslaved for so many generations that they had forgotten what freedom meant. Human counselors worked patiently to help them remember how to make choices for themselves. A young Eltarian approached Dan with tears in her large, silver eyes. Her species had been slaves for 300,000 years, modified genetically to be better workers. Commander Cooper, is it true? Are we really free? Will the masters never come back? Dan knelt down to her level, his enhanced senses picking up the fear that still dominated her thoughts. The Zorothy are gone forever. You will never be slaves again. Humans promise this. But what will we do? We only know how to work in the mines. We do not know how to live free. You will learn, Dan said gently. Humans will teach you. We will help you remember what your people were before the Zorothy enslaved them. You will have your own worlds again. You will have your own choices. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds as billions of former slaves began to understand that their nightmare was finally over. Human social workers, enhanced with empathic abilities, helped each species begin the long process of healing from centuries of trauma. Meanwhile, on the restored Earth, Admiral Kate Hudson walked through the rebuilt city of New Washington. Human, terraforming technology had repaired all the damage from the ancient Zorothy attack. Green parks grew where nuclear craters had once scarred the land. Clear rivers flowed where radiation had once poisoned the water. The blue sky was clean and bright. Hudson's great-great-granddaughter, Sarah, played in the same park where Hudson's ancestors had played as children. The little girl laughed as she chased butterflies the human scientists had recreated from genetic samples preserved in the exile fleet. Grandmother Kate, tell me about the old wars, Sarah said as she ran up to Hudson with a flower in her hand. Hudson picked up the child and sat on a bench under an oak tree that was descended from the last trees to survive Earth's destruction. Long ago, bad aliens came and hurt our world. But humans are strong, Sarah. Humans never give up. We went away for a very long time, and we learned how to be stronger than anyone thought possible. Then we came back and made the bad aliens go. Away forever. Will the bad aliens ever come back? Hudson looked up at the sky, where human patrol ships moved silently through the atmosphere. No, child, they will never come back. And if any new bad aliens ever appear, humans will be ready. For them too. The human republic now stretched across the entire galaxy, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Human fleets patrolled every star system, watching for threats and helping species that needed assistance. The enhanced humans had become the guardians of galactic civilization. Dr. Rachel Stone stood in the Hall of Memory on Luna Station, looking at the wall that listed the names of every human who had died during the Great Exodus. Billions of names carved in quantum crystal that would last until the end of time. Each name represented a life cut short, a dream unfulfilled, a future stolen by Zorathy cruelty. They are avenged, Rachel whispered to the memorial wall. Every single one of them is avenged. The galaxy is free. Humanity has returned. In the deepest reaches of space, human exploration fleets pushed beyond the galaxy's edge, searching for new frontiers and new challenges. They carried with them the hard-earned wisdom of their long exile, that survival required strength, that freedom required vigilance, and that justice sometimes took 500,000 years to achieve. The Zorathy Empire was extinct. The human republic ruled through protection rather than oppression. And in schools across 1,000 worlds, children of dozens of species learned the story of the lost warriors who had returned from the void to bring freedom to the galaxy. Humanity had learned the greatest lesson of all, that evil could be patient, but justice could be even more patient. And when justice finally arrived, it would be absolute and eternal. The long exile was over. The galaxy belonged to the free once again.